run into or shade into quite obvious anti-Semitism of a sort that really is, on the whole, alien to us in this country. And that, to me, offers a really interesting challenge, because it's a way of repositioning the debate, repositioning our role in the debate, and actually thinking imaginatively. I don't think we in Australia can work out a blueprint for settling the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. I don't think we should. But what I think we might try to do is take the leadership in using Australia's rather unique position of being a Western country in Southeast Asia to change some of the entrenched attitudes that exist in our neighbourhood. And that, to me, would be a very different approach to that which is espoused either by the so-called leaders of the Jewish community, or in fact by most of its critics, because it changes the emphasis, and in fact it says we as Jewish Australians can have a particular way of influencing our government, which in turn can help influence the international debate. Now, after dinner speeches are supposed to be funny, and I haven't been funny for at least 10 minutes, which suggests to me I'm probably coming to an end. Let me just say, I didn't ever feel the need to escape the tribe particularly. As I said, that was not my topic. I guess part of me, and this is the cosmopolitanism that people so distrust in Jews and homosexuals, part of me is always sceptical of affiliations that are too tribal. Part of me thinks we do need at times to think universally, and that if the Jewish News thought the real question about Tony Abbott is he good for the Jews, then I think the Jewish News is wrong. But seriously, in many ways, in the world we live in, our ethnicity, our history, our religion, our generations define us, both for ourselves and for other people. And at the moment, with this fight going on, as I gather, in the community, about accepting into the community organisations a gay and lesbian group, I would just say, as I said before, that if anybody should understand the dangers of discriminating against one section of the population on the basis of their characteristics, it should be Jews.
Yeah.
And while it's not a fight that I'm personally involved in, I'm delighted to know that many of you in this room have been involved in that fight. I wish you well. I thank you for dinner, and now we get to have dessert.
That was raised a whole lot of wonderful questions, and I'm wondering, Dennis, if we might ask you, your running sheet says there is time for questions.
Does it? They didn't give me a running sheet.
Would you mind?
No, that's fine.
So maybe I'll just throw it open to people to, if there are any comments or questions, perhaps you might.
Look, given the current situation in Israel, we all know that it's heading down the road from an apartheid state. Unfortunately, it seems to be going that way. What can we as Jews do, really? I mean, you said we can try and get involved in this and that. Why is it that this community is so different to the one in America, where at least we have J Street and a few other things coming up? There is certainly a movement in America amongst the progressive. You know, it's 5 or 6 million people in America. The great majority of people in America are progressive Jews, and their views are pretty different to the ultra-Orthodox. Can we get
the question? You repeat the question.
I will repeat the question.
In America, they have a very left-wing view. We have communities like J Street, which have a lot of power. They've got 115,000 members within a year. Jeremy Ben-Ahmed, the founder, was involved with the Clinton administration. Do you see that that's going to change Israeli attitudes?
Okay, look, the question was essentially, I think there were two questions really. One was about the relative views of Australian and American Jews, and the other was then leading on from that, and I'm paraphrasing you, what can we do? Look, I think, it's interesting you raised J Street, because I just read an article about J Street, so I thought, good, I know how to answer this. I don't think we should get too carried away. Yes, J Street has attracted a certain amount of support, but remember we're talking about a very, very much bigger community. I'm not sure that proportionally that support is that different to the situation here. And more importantly, it has yet to be translated into effective political action. Although we all know that Obama is perceived as less pro-Israeli and that he said the right things about stopping the settlements, in practice I'm not sure much has changed. So I don't know that that necessarily is the best model. I think, as I said, what we in Australia can do is, relatively it's very difficult. And I think what we in Australia can do is try and put on the agenda the unquestioning support, bipartisan support for a tough line Israeli position. And that's not very much, but then we're not a very important country in this conflict. And that is within our capabilities. And one of the things I think we have to do is we have to find a way of dialoguing with the ALP. And the Labor Party at the moment is taking a much harder line on Israel than some elements of the US administration, which to me is a mystery and is one that I think is within our capacity to address. You're pointing a flash
camera. Okay. It's actually it's about the power of lobby groups. It seems to me what's happened in Australia, you've got this Jewish establishment which has now got new organisations, and in a sense they've incorporated themselves into the elite. I remember how Sol Ensel wrote a long time ago about elites in Australia, and it seems to me you've got a similar sort of emergent elite which is entirely on the right, and I wondered if you had any reflections about that kind of elite way of doing things in Australia, and it's a relationship to democracy in Australia.
Well, I won't go into a political science answer about elites and democracy.
All right.
Because I wouldn't even do it very well, and that would after all be embarrassing for my employers.
Oh, that's one thing.
But I think I'm not... I think that in a sense you're right, that the perceived leadership of the Jewish community, this sort of ties in with your point as well, the perceived leadership of the Jewish community in Australia is probably pretty conservative. It's also been very successful at managing a bipartisan position. Indeed, it may be one of the few areas left in which there is a genuine bipartisanship in Australia. But I don't think I'd put it in the way you did. I think that to try and understand why there is such, it seems, universal support in the political elites in Australia for the Israeli government is a pretty complicated question that isn't simply a matter of the effectiveness of the organised Jewish community. I'm not quite sure I know the answer, and I know Les has at one point suggested a very interesting relationship between our history as a settler society. I think that's right, isn't it?
I think your interpretation of my comments were a little...
they were wrong.
Misinterpretive, but the idea was there somewhere, yes. Yeah.
That was a yes.
Okay, I think that there's... I guess I'm trying to avoid an easy answer, because I don't think there is an easy answer. And I think that one of the things we need to do is become much smarter in our analysis of why it is that successive Australian governments have taken the position they have. And many of you will know when the Rudd government made a very small change in a vote in the UN.